right, it looks like the audio should be good to go. All right, it looks like the audio. All right, so today I like my double glasses. It helps me see better. Blue blockers and prescription glasses. So today we are going to cover the last day of the third week out of the 5 weeks of the 5 archetypes of masculinity. First week was the lover. The second week was the alchemist. The third week is the warrior. The fourth week will be the monk. And then the fifth week, right, will cause and bring it back all together, and that is the sovereign. And the sovereign is the culmination, but it cannot exist on its own. Because you see, you have to have all 5, right? Try to do something one handed with missing one of your fingers, or just injured where you can't quite move it the same and your hand doesn't work quite the same. This is what I'm saying, that it's, I can find proof in the Bible that my conjecture here dovetails very well with a lot of things that are in the Bible. And 5 is a very crucial number. It's a number of masculinity. It is the number of a governmental system. All right. So we don't have time to get into all that philosophy about how that number is used, the name of that number, the pronunciation of that number is used in biblical language in the Hebrew. You can't see it in the English. It's just not going to happen in any other language other than in Hebrew. So that's the context to give you. And now, let me tell you what we talked about. We talked about the archetype of the lover, which is the base of a pyramid. The next one in the rung is the alchemist. Lover, alchemist, okay? Then comes, after the alchemist comes a warrior, right? The middle one, the one that gives you all the strength, that's the energy. And then we have the monk, we have the sovereign, and they have their places. And the reason why you need the warrior in the center is because the warrior is the expansive energy that causes all the other one. It is the engine for the lover's passion. It is the intuitive discipline of recording everything of the alchemist. It causes the ceremonies of the monk to be enhanced with a folklore and awe. And the sovereign sits on the power of the warrior. He does not have a throne except for the warrior. And so every week we emphasize the power of one particular archetype, so that in the blending and understanding of what and how they work, you can then develop a pattern of self-discovery, so that throughout the rest of your life, you can always reference, not sometimes, but on a daily basis. You can reference it several times a day, and it'll bring you a lot of good and healing, and put you in the right place. Well, what's the right place? A place you've always wanted to be, which is large and in charge, right? We like large and in charge. Don't we? Okay. So we covered the lover the week before last. Then last week we covered the alchemist, and we talked about the power of the alchemist. And now this week we've shown how the warrior inside the lover not only provides that beautiful passion and makes it sanctimonious, but the mixture of the two bring a beautiful balance so that the lover doesn't become lazy, fat, and wimpy. And then we looked at the alchemist, right? The alchemist can become a charlatan, a magician, and a trickster, and that's why he needs the service heart of the warrior. And we talked about what does it look like when the warrior is inside the warrior. Woo! That's a heavy one, right? But no, what you see is that it has a tendency to easily go in one direction or the other, become completely excess and a destroyer, or become completely passive and just be a shadow. And so this is where we're at. That's what we're covering. And hold your questions to the end. We'll have a Q&A. Excuse me. And I want to, as always, take a quick moment and clear your breath, clear your mind by clearing your breath. Take a real deep breath with me, if you will, and hold it at the top. Squeeze like you're trying to breathe out without letting the air out. Put pressure on your body. And when you feel you can't hold it no more, sip in a little bit more. Keep the tension. And get ready to completely relax. And drop your shoulders and drop your head. Take a deep breath and let it come up naturally. And that's it. That's a clearing breath. There comes a moment in a man's life when the sword he used to fight starts feeling heavy. And those moments sometimes are temporary. And then there's kind of a moment when you're just tired of fighting battles. Not because he's weak, not because the war he has been fighting isn't outside anymore. He looks and he sees that it's inside. And he goes, you know what? These tools are no longer helping me. They don't do the work for me. See, I remember the night it changed for me. Boy, do I remember that. The sword that I used to cut through the enemy, through obstacles, through everything in my path, suddenly became the very thing I needed to surrender. And there was a transmutation, if you will. It wasn't a weapon anymore. It became a symbol of trust. Tonight I want to share how that happened for me, and hopefully you can draw something out of it. Not as an expert, not as a man who's figured it all out, but as a brother who finally stopped fighting a battle that didn't lead to heaven. It just led to another war and another war and another war, incessantly. So let me start with what I would call chapter 1. The warrior who wouldn't stop fighting. For years, everything I did was war. I grew up that way. Every goal, a mission. Every relationship, a campaign. Every failure, an enemy to conquer. And it worked. Of course it worked. I built businesses. I raised children, 40 of them to be exact. I fought in courtrooms, divorces, in boardrooms, doing deals, and in my own home, too. But no matter what, no matter how much I won, I keep losing my peace. Because a warrior in me only knew one command, and that's engage. Mm. You know that voice, right? That one that says, if I stop fighting, everything will fall apart. That is the lie that kept me shrinking until I realized I wasn't protecting life. I was protecting the illusion that I had to keep fighting to prove that I was alive. I want you to hear what I'm saying. Because in war, you try to eliminate something, destroy and kill. And here, I believe the lie in the illusion that if I stopped fighting, I would no longer have proof that I was alive. It became my everything. Mm. When you're in that space, your sword is no longer your tool anymore. It becomes your cage. You wake up every day ready to fight, and all you do is sharpen the freaking blade, and the bars get stronger around you. I'll tell you about a dream I had. Hopefully, this kind of drives it home. I'll tell you exactly when it. December 6th of 1996. I had three dreams, and I'm gonna tell you just about a little bit about one. In it, I was fighting a massive creature, a demon, if you will, and I had fought as good as I could. I realized that every strike I landed only didn't make it stronger. It just seemed like he was impervious to it. But I was so determined that I was gonna kill him. It's like almost like he was feeding on my energy every time I struck him. I looked up at the heavens and I saw a sword coming down, but it was spinning like a helicopter does, right? In a spiral shape. So not only was it coming down, but it was spinning and it was going in a spiral. So I couldn't calculate how I was gonna catch it, right? But it was coming directly towards me, and I'm still fighting that demon creature. And when I would look up to try and calculate the handle, the sun would blind me. And then I heard a voice. You know that voice that you don't hear outside of you? No one can hear it, not even in your dreams, but you still hear it. And you don't hear it with your ears. It's a knowing kind of thing. And it said trust. But man, I was afraid. Okay? I'm not kidding you. I was afraid. I had just fought 5 other demons, and this was the 6th one, and he had absorbed those other corpuses that I had killed. So, yeah, he was big, and he was laughing at me. So I was afraid. I thought, if I trust, my hand would get cut. So I'm not supposed to look. But I didn't know was the demon I was fighting. Every wound I carried, every betrayal, every loss, every failure was feeding that beast. And that night, something in me broke. I realized that the fight wasn't about killing the beast, it was about creating a covenant with it. And that's when I understood that the real warrior doesn't fight for control, he fights for harmony. The sword of destruction became the sword of trust. Who do you trust? How do you trust when you've been betrayed so often? By your government, by your wife, by your children, by your neighbors, by your family. Well, how? You see, we'll be covering more about this monk. And at the end, I have a really powerful story that really brings this whole monk and warrior. The monk can never be a high priest if he has never been a warrior. I want to show you that at the very end. There is something sacred about being a warrior that needs to be redeemed. That moment was a birth of that monk archetype. See, the monk isn't weak, he's not passive. He's the man who's learned that the presence can do more than power could ever do. Most of us have been trained to dominate, get ready, to conquer, to be in control. But the monk teaches the warrior how to listen, how to have dominion, not to dominate, how to conquest with presence, not to be the conqueror, how to be in control of his own self, not control others. The monk teaches how to listen to your breath. That's why we did that exercise. How to listen to your body because it's sending you signals and it's picking up energy and signals around you. How to listen to the silence between your thoughts and that space in between them. Because when you do, you start hearing what the battlefield's been trying to tell you all along. It's not that, and it is that not every enemy is out there. Some of them live in here. Okay? And they're not there to destroy you, but they are a force to contend with. And they're here to be redeemed. You know, Carl Jung and some other people have talked about these demons that need compassion, that they need to be saved. I'm telling you, nothing needs to be saved. Nothing. Redeemed is something else. Transmutated, sure. But saved? No. That's when the warrior becomes a bridge between heaven and earth, between the power and peace, between action and awareness. When you are aware, you have no need for action. That's when the sword becomes a staff and the battlefield becomes a sacred ground. I don't know what you're fighting tonight. Maybe it's exhaustion. Maybe it's fear. Fear of losing your children, your purpose, fear that you've lost your fire forever. And I want to tell you, and I've been there many times. I've swung that sword into my hands, bled. I then realized that the fight wasn't out there, it was inside. And I began to beat the darkness until it bled light. And that day I learned to trust the inner voice. The day I stopped trying to kill, I was already being healed. That's the day my sword became sacred again. That's the warrior in the monk. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the harmony of action and awareness. Right action happens because of awareness, not the other way around. Told you that at the end I was going to give you one more story, and here it is. You see, there is a concept that's been handed down to us. And that concept is that doing acts of violence is violence and violent in itself. And I could go on and on for a long time on that. I don't know if you know this, but violence has a language. And the story that I want to share with you is the reason why the monk is serving the sovereign, and the reason why the monk is the one that's closest to the sovereign, the king, the Lord, is because he's the joiner. You see, the sons of Levi had inherited in their DNA a power to destroy and kill. And so they learned to use that and redeem it into the service of mankind. And then they became the ones that would officiate to bring union in between God and man during the time that those sacrifices were acceptable. And because he was already adept with the knife, he was chosen to be the one to bring union in between man and his maker. And so a lot of people don't make that connection. And I used to be one of those men that used to be, ashamed for the things that I had done as a warrior and the things that I didn't do and when I should have done it and all this other stuff. And until I realized that story I'm telling you about Levi makes sense, because if you look at the Bible from King David's position, who was supposed to be and I say supposed to be with tongue in cheek, the one so close to God that God said, you know what, the Messiah is going to come from your lineage. All right? So who was King David? David was a man very acquainted with violence. He was a warrior king, a very good one. And he had 47 great men with him, the original 47 Ronin, I guess. And my point is to get you to see this, that if that makes sense to you, and if you're a warrior tonight and you're still dealing with some kind of guilt or shame, PTSD, angry, um, constantly sad, fighting an enemy that you cannot see, I'm extending my hand out to you. And I'm inviting you because I'm starting a beta group for only 5 men. Men who are ready to stop fighting and start mastering their 5 archetypes: the sovereign, the monk, the warrior, the alchemist, the lover. Look, if this is of interest, don't worry, there's no pressure. We can talk about that. Just presence. And if this message hits you in the gut, if something inside of you is as whispered, that's me, then maybe this is for you. Maybe this is your sword of trust moment. Don't wait for another war to be the end and then you go, you join. Let's learn how to fight the right way together.